Adam, how was the prices in Argentina right now?
Oh mate, so cheap. Like you can go out for like steak dinner and a bottle of red wine for like €7.
Fuck, let's do it. Oh yeah, I'm waiting for that. Is your first time in Chile or no?
Yeah, first time traveling South America.
South America is my place, man. I feel home in South America.
So nice.
The first time I came here was on a layover, a 10-hour layover. And it was either stay at the airport or leave and explore the city a bit.
Yeah.
My buddy I was with him, he's like, oh, let's just stay here. I'm like, are you fucking crazy? We have 10 hours. I go, let me Google the closest place that's like alive at night. And it was here, Barrio Bella Vista. My first 20 minutes on the street, I like pick up a girl. Hey, you, come here. She ends up taking me to discoteca for like 4 hours.
No,
We made out, this, that. Next thing you know, my alarm clock goes off. I gotta go back to the airport. So I'm supposed to be seeing this girl here too. Let's see if she shows up. Peru. Chuleta, velada, suela. Ok.
1 you going to go in Argentina? Buenos Aires?
Yeah, Buenos Aires. When I meet up with my friend first day, I'm leaving it all in his hands. Basically, he's gonna show me around, do what we gotta do.
Buenos Aires is a very nice city.
I don't know where else to. Like I did a little bit of research, but there's just so many things I crammed into one trip.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's just go with the flow. I have locals in Argentina, locals in Chile. I know this girl in Peru. So let them lead the way. Paolo, Londra. Those have a lot of style over there, huh? Watch out for those Venezuelan guys over there. Gracias. Grecia, Grecia. Go for it. So out of all the countries you've been to so far, which one was the most dodgiest?
My phone got stolen the first night in Argentina.
Fucking Argentina, huh?
Straight out the hand.
Straight off the hand.
Yeah, whilst on a phone call.
Motherfuckers. brazen daytime robbery or nighttime?
Night time. The worst thing was, I just come from Brazil. I spent 5 weeks in Brazil. I was so cautious. My first night in Buenos Aires, I went outside the hostel for a cigarette and made a phone call. And as soon as I put the phone to my ear, a guy on a motorbike drove behind me and snatched it.
Son of a bitch. Have you been to Colombia yet?
Nah, it's my last stop.
Be very careful in Colombia,
Yeah,
my friend.
I know. Yeah, a lot of people have told me.
They'll kidnap you anyway. They'll keep you for 5 days draining your bank accounts. That's it. He said we have to look for a guy with like a Waldo shirt. There he is.
Over there.
Where's Waldo? We found Waldo. And we got here in 12 minutes. We made good time instead of 13.
And basically, guys, the idea is to give you an insight into what reality is for most people in the country. Santiago and Chile have this very strong reputation of being wealthy, developed, of being like the most stable country in Latin America. To a great extent, it is like that. But that doesn't mean we don't have poverty, we don't have issues in the streets. So we want to show you a more humble side of the city. That's what we're doing. It would be great, guys, if we can do a little bit of an introduction so we get to know each other before leaving. So please tell us what your names are, where you come from, and if you can provide a recommendation on a favorite place in Latin America, it would be great. If you don't have any favorite place because this might be day number 1 in the street, please tell us where you're gonna head afterwards. Can we please start with you?
Yeah, I'm Adam. I'm from England, and recommendations. I just come from Pupon, which was absolutely amazing, or Rio in Brazil. Perfect.
So guys, we know each other, we know what we're doing. Let's talk about safety. I would say Santiago is really good when it comes to safety, but anyway, this is Chile's capital, and the city of Santiago has 8 million people. What do we have in the city? Pickpockets, like most big cities around the world. What we can do today, not to have any issue, is to walk together. If we go to the market like a single unit, it will be very difficult for strangers to come near them. All right? Second, ask me all questions you want. Feel safe, enjoy the walk, but remember, Santiago being a great city, a big city, it's about common sense. So keep your belongings close to you, keep your backup close to you, and be aware of your surroundings. All right? We work for tips. What does it mean? I'll do my very best to provide a very good experience. You'll learn a lot. You will get lots of recommendations on activities and places to visit in Santiago. And by the end of the tour, if you feel really, really satisfied with what you did, there is a suggested tip, which is anything between 10 and 20 American dollars per person. How much is it in Chilean pesos? Anything between 10 and 20,000 each, only if you think the tour was really good. What if you feel the tour wasn't as good as expected? Feel free to tip less. What if you feel the tour is really bad? Come close to me, tell me, Carlos, you really suck at doing tours. Get back to Colombia, find another job. I won't be offended, because at the end of the day, guys, we have to deliver very well to make a good salary because we rely on generosity. So do we guys have a deal?
Yeah.
All right, guys. So we're gonna get started. We're gonna walk around the corner. I'm gonna tell you a bit of information about the museum, and we're gonna start building some ideas on what Chileans and Chile are about. Ready? Vamos. Let's go.
Reach out and I know. Okay, where do you have to start?
So basically, I was trying to leave my hostel.
Yeah.
And they were blocking the door to the hostel, but I didn't understand why. Because I wasn't looking at them, and they were like arguing. And he was like yelling, and the girl was like blocking the door. and I was like, oh, can I leave? And she's like, no, I can't open the door. And I was like, oh, but I'm going to go walk, so I have to.
Hello, where are you from?
I have to walk 20 minutes. She's like, okay, I'll open the door for you. Come like behind me, right? So she opens the door a tiny bit. I go to go out, and the man runs, grabs me, pulls me back, and runs out the door. And he like slams me to the door, and he runs down the street. And they're like yelling after him. But the girl like felt really bad. She's like, yeah, that's why I didn't want to open the door. And I was like, what the heck just happened? Like, I've traveled a lot. I've been to every Central American country, like almost every South American country. And that's like the first time something like that's happening. But so it's kind of a place. Well, no, she said they come a lot. Like, they will tend to be guests in the hostel where I'm not at. And then, they like make people they walk out, pretend like they're in the hostel. But like, that, I mean, I've lived in since back then. And it's
Yes,
9:30.
actually, you have to.
But yeah, I was super shocked, and then they felt really bad. And I was like, no, I shouldn't have like insisted they open the
And
door,
then
but I really wanted to see what this So, yeah, it's fine. It happens.
It was
No, not really. Just a little bit shocked.
23 hours.
Yeah.
It was really long, but
It's not a long word.
so, yeah.
Oh, God. Do you know what's going on next door? Yeah, long and good.
All right, guys. So I want to hear what reasons brought you to Chile. What got your interest about visiting this country? Thing is that I feel lazy today and I don't want to be giving lots of information, so I just want
Okay,
to
I'll
compliment
say.
with you.
I'm a big fan of Isabel Allende.
Okay.
So I read all of her books, and House of Spirits, she talks about the desert, and ever since I read that book, I wanted to come.
Okay. Did you know Isabel Allende is related to the former
Yes,
President
of course.
Allende? Okay.
Yes.
So this is actually it's a very beautiful reason because it's not the most common. Chile has amazing writers. There has been 2 Nobel Prizes of Literature. There is also Isabel Allende, and there is today a very important visit. We're gonna visit the writer's uncle, the grave of Salvador Allende. That's what we're covering at the end. Salvador Allende was the president of Chile between 1970 and 73. He was killed on September 11, 1973, and that was the beginning of a dictatorship. So today we're gonna visit that grave, and I'll tell you a little bit of politics in the last 50 years. So I can give you some recommendations about other Chilean authors. Hey,
Okay.
so good. Literature. Good starting point. A different one. Nature. And this is, I guess, most of you, right? You came here to do some hiking, to visit either the Patagonia or the desert. And this is a very good starting point because this is the perfect transition to talk about the Andes and the Pacific Ocean. Chile is the longest country in the world. And no matter where we are, we're gonna be always very, very close to the Pacific Ocean and to the Andes Mountains. If we take Santiago as a reference, we're only 1.5 hours away to the Andes, 1.5 hours away from the ocean, Valparaíso and Viña del Mar, and this makes of Chile a very diverse country. In the north, we have a desert, which is meant to be the driest desert in the world. Then we have the Central Valley, which is Santiago, 3 hours north and 3 hours south. And here we have Mediterranean weather, so this is the perfect valley for wine production. And then we have the south, which is about forests, lots of water, lots of rivers, and lots of lakes. So, why is geography such an important feature? Because this is the most important reason why we have a strong tourism industry. And Santiago, if this is the number one for you in Chile, is going to be the perfect transition between what we consider like developed countries and nature. So if you go to the north or the south, you're transitioning in a very smooth way. All right? So we have already geography, mountains, and because of the amount of mountains, we have a lot of terremotos. Is there anyone who doesn't understand the word terremoto? Earthquakes, that's right. Okay, so in case you have never felt an earthquake, let me tell you that Chile has had some of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded, ever. The strongest one was 1960, and that was a 9.5 in the momentum scale. It lasted more than 10 minutes. and it wouldn't be a single earthquake, but more than 30 earthquakes, one right after the other. This tsunami that came afterwards was actually so big they got to feel some of the waves in Japan. And in 2010, we had a very similar scenario. This time it was an 8.9. It lasted like 8 minutes. And it was also in the south with big waves getting to Japan. The strongest one I ever felt was in 2015. And that was a 7.5, if I'm not wrong. 2 minutes long, very scary. Because every time there is a big earthquake in Chile, there is two moments. There is the beginning, and on the beginning, it starts actually kind of smooth, but you hear the earth kind of roaring like a huge tiger. Then you know it's getting serious. And when it gets serious, sometimes the waves are so big, if you are standing on the ground, you can see waves on the ground. All right? Anyway, the country has had to face very strong earthquakes throughout all of its history. So architecture is very, very well made. And since there's nothing to do, my recommendation will be to wait patiently until it's over. How to tell if it's serious? By locals' reaction. If no one does anything, it's because it's a soft one. If Chileans are actually getting on their feet and standing and reacting, it's because it might be very serious. And that's a good way of knowing when people were born in Chile, been living for a while, or they are very new. People that have been here just for a couple years, they get scared very easily and they panic. Once you have been here after a couple years, you realize there's nothing to do, so you better be patient and start praying to a higher force. All right? So that's geography, that's earthquakes. Let's go talk now about Chilean cuisine. Have you had any Chilean food so far?
Yeah.
Some of you have. If so, what have you had?
The national dish, but I don't know how to say it.
Eh,
Corn is on the top.
Pastel de choclo.
Amazing.
Okay, good. So pastel de choclo, this is one of our national dishes, and I do not like to have only one because the country is very long. So what people eat in the north is very different to what we eat here, very different to what people eat in the south. Anyway, pastel de choclo, I think is one of the best, and this is actually like a very similar concept to that of the shepherd's pie. Main difference, we don't use potatoes, but we use corn on the top, and that corn is added sugar. So you cook it in the oven, and the exterior is crunchy and sweet. Inside of it, there is this mix of beef, olives, onions, and eggs, which are savory. And best way to have it is with a Chilean salad. Chilean salad, the traditional one, is gonna be slices of tomatoes, onions, parsley, and a vinaigrette, which is commonly olive oil, salt, pepper, and lime juice. It's a beautiful dish, all right? Anyway, I would like to extend the topic to the wine industry. Raise your hands if you're into wine. Some of you, like half of the group, let's say. Chile is a very, very large producer. However, we do not get a very good reputation on quality. We get a very good reputation on value. So you don't have a lot of money, you go to the supermarket and you want to buy something good. Chilean wine, 10 euros, dollars, and it's gonna be decent. Not outstanding, not bad, decent good wine. However, guys, if you're here in Chile, my invitation is to expand your horizons and find out in Chile there is outstanding wines you can find for prices between 20 and 40 American dollars. So what's the deal? Massive production in Chile is concentrated in the Central Valley, which is around Santiago. There is another valleys where the wine is not that massive, and when it comes in a smaller production and a higher quality. My favorite varieties in Chile would be Shiraz and Chardonnays from the north. And from the south, we have another variety which is called País. And that would be very similar to a good Pinot Noir from Burgundy. Good thing is that we don't have to pay those crazy prices. We can find them for $20 or $30. Hey,
Hi.
are you guys joining?
Yeah.
Come in, please. Welcome. So, there is two wine bars very near here. One of them is called Boca Nariz. They have over 300 labels, all of them from Chile, and you can try wines from different valleys. Do not limit yourself to try what you have already had back home, which is most likely Cabernet Sauvignon or Carmener from Central Valley. Explore south and north. That would be very different. And finally, guys, there is the very interesting and divisive topic of politics. So that's the name of Salvador Allende, ring a bell? Well, I already told you. Socialist president. Some Chileans would say he was the coolest president ever in the country. And I would agree with that up to a certain extent. Some others would say he was the worst president ever, right? And then there was the coup d'etat of September 11, in which the army betrayed, they killed the president, and there will be a very infamous gentleman taking over Chile's government. Do you know the name of this gentleman?
Pinochet.
Augusto Pinochet. Under Pinochet's dictatorship, there was lots of economic reforms. So some people claim there was the beginning of a development era by Pinochet, but there was also human rights violations, including the killing, torturing, exiling, and disappearing of thousands of Chileans. So today, guys, I'm gonna give you a little bit of politics when we visit Salvador Allende's grave at the end of the tour at the cemetery. And the idea is not to bore you with lots of like heavy information, but just to basically give you a summary of what's been 50 years of politics so you can understand the country a bit better. So the whole point of talking about these topics, guys, is to have you open your mind about to open your mind on what Chile is about. Do you have any questions so far? Okay, so a couple comments on museums. This is the entrance to the Contemporary Art Museum, which is the same facilities of the Fine Arts Museum. It's just that this one has the entrance here, the other entrance goes to the Fine Arts. Most museums in Chile and Santiago are free. They open every day from Monday. But Mondays. Mondays they do not open. 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. My top 3 museums in the city, the ones you cannot miss, are number 3, Pablo Neruda's house. Amazing poet. Had a house in Bella Vista. The house was made into a museum a couple decades ago. And right there you can learn about the life of who I consider the greatest poet from not only Latin America, but I would say in the Spanish language in the 20th century. Second in my list would be the Museum of Pre-Columbian Cultures, which is about the native communities before the arrival of the Spanish. And number 1 in my list will be the Museum on Memory and Human Rights, which covers factual information on human rights violations during the dictators. Okay? So guys, ready to go?
Miraflores.
Yeah. Oh, I see. So this time I started in Guatemala. I did all of Central America, and then I'd already done Colombian Peru last year, so I just went. I'm doing this year, Chile and Argentina, because I did Colombian Peru when I was like 5 seconds. Now it's Western, so and then I'll go visit my family for 10 days. That I'm moving again. Yeah, I miss my family. Chile, South America. I did a trek in Peru. If you like something, I recommend it's called Summertime. Basically, trek to the Andes, and you end up in the town. And then I love Atacama. I don't know if it's that one. Yeah, I would recommend it. Just the desert in the north, it's called Atacama. Yeah, Atacama. So what?
How the city gets divided by the river. Have you seen the river? It's called Mapocho, most beautiful river in the continent maybe. And we have 2 different versions of Santiago on each side of it. We have the southern part, we have the northern part, and I would like to get started by giving you some facts on it, on this side first. So this is the European side of Santiago, and this has to do with many factors. The first one, Chile. Actually, before it was Chile, this was a colony from Spain. So Spaniards came, they conquered the natives, and they built everything. A very good example of a Spanish residence of the 18th century would be that house. That was built in the middle of the 18th century. And all houses at that time were like that. Chile's independence took place between 1810 and 1812. By 1850, Chile became a very popular place for Austrians, French, English, people from many different countries in Europe moved into here. And when they built houses, they wanted their houses to be like the ones they had back home. So right here we can have an understanding of that. Have a look at that apartment building, at that house, at that one, and at the one which is on that corner on the other side of the street. All of them have a very different style. And you can tell they come from different places just by having a look at the facade. So in Santiago's downtown, we do not have a single style of architecture, but we have a mix of different countries and times. To make it more interesting, this place was the residence of the wealthiest, most powerful families, and also it was the place to have the buildings for the most important institutions. The cathedral, the presidential palace, the Supreme Court of Justice, the Congress, the Parliament, all of those are in here. If you haven't explored this side of town, let me tell you, we do an afternoon tour at 3 p.m. Meeting point is the same one. And 2 comments on temperature. It might be higher, but walking Santiago's downtown is actually more pleasant because there is more shade. So the temperature is higher, but it's easier to find shade. Okay, so I would say actually it feels better to do the afternoon tour than the morning one because in the afternoon, in the cemetery, there is not that much shade. All right. So, back to the tour. This is the way Santiago's downtown has developed in the last 200 years. On the other side of the river, there has been another neighborhood by the name of La Chimba. La Chimba is not related to what La Chimba might mean in Colombian Spanish, all right? La Chimba is a reference to the other side, and it means actually the other side of town. What's been in La Chimba? Very humble communities, including farmers, natives, immigrants, and institutions that were necessary for the city, but they were not that pretty, so they had them in the other side. What were those? Messy markets, garbage dumpster, the cemetery, the sanatorium, etc. The people that lived in there were very humble. They didn't have enough money to live here. So they were kind of the servants of these wealthy families. Wealthy families in here didn't have much of a need to go there. So there was this kind of a segregation feeling, and it would be only in the 18th century that, by the construction of bridges, they integrated Santiago. That was more than 200 years ago, so today those differences are not that big. However, just by crossing the bridge, we'll feel a very different vibe into that side of town. So now I want to give you guys some comments on diversity, immigration, and racism in Chile. Chile was the first country in Latin America to abolish slavery by 1823, if I'm not wrong. What does that mean? Historically wise, Chile hasn't had a strong, numerous black community. And that was something that shocked me really badly at the very beginning of my time in Chile. I grew up in Cali, Colombia, which is a city where at least 40% of the people are black. So for me, racism has never existed. When I moved to Chile, I got lucky and I got myself a very nice place into one of the wealthiest neighborhoods, and that was one of the prettiest places I have ever lived. But at the same time, it was one of the most boring places ever. Everything was perfectly neat and organized, but no one actually looked at you in the eye, no one said hi, it was very cold. And there, I heard some of the most racist comments ever, so I thought to myself, is it like Chileans are this racist? And I kept that idea for a couple of weeks, and I started exploring Santiago's downtown. I found the markets, and then I found there were people from all over the continent living in there. And then after a couple of weeks later, I found out there were more communities from all over the world. So I'm going to tell you about the 3 biggest and most important ones. First one, Palestinians. Biggest community of Palestinians outside Middle East is in Chile, reaching numbers that are about 500,000 people. And they've been here for more than 100 years. They started arriving into Chile back into the 1890s, when Chile was into a boom of nitrate. They needed miners. There was this huge wave of Palestinians coming to the country. And today, they have not only reached big numbers, but they have played a very important role in Patronato, which is the neighborhood where the markets are. To make it more interesting, Chileans are very passionate on soccer, on football. And there will be 4 big football teams in the city. Do you know anything about football in Chile? Colo Colo, this is the one team that stands for working classes. Then there is another team for the, let's say, the higher class. You know anything? Universidad Católica. Then there is Universidad de Chile, which is somewhere in between Colo Colo and Universidad Católica. And then there is the Palestinian football team. Alright, so that's how big they are. Second community, guys, is the Koreans. Koreans have been here nearly for 60 years. They've opened up a lot of restaurants, and I hope Chileans do not feel offended by this comment, but I think the best food in Santiago is actually Korean cuisine. It's delicious. And at the neighborhood where I live, there is like a Korean restaurant in every single block. And what I love the most about them, guys, is that not only they're bringing up their cuisine, but actually the fact they have kept their culture pretty much intact. So the very first game, they didn't integrate that much. So there is still many Korean families that only speak Korean, but it will be their sons and their kids and their great grandsons that are fully integrated. And now, because of the explosion of the K-pop movement and the K-pop bands, there will be Korean fast food restaurants everywhere in town. So that will be the second most notorious. And third will be the Latin community, but I would like to give you like a special comments on what I label like the black community that lives in Santiago, because historically wise we haven't had one, but this started like massively wise with the arrival of Haitians back in 2006 after they had an earthquake. So there has been a lot of people from Haiti, from Caribbean countries like Dominican Republic, some Cubans as well, some Venezuelans, Colombians, etc. I grew up in a city where music is very important, and salsa music is played like in every single house. So I love musical diversity. I love the fact that in the markets today we find arepas. We find Colombian and Venezuelan empanadas as well. But unfortunately, guys, the media doesn't help a lot. I'm not gonna say everyone that comes into Chile behaves perfectly. There is criminals from all nationalities. And unfortunately, when someone does something wrong, they just highlight that. So there is this massive information of kicking out immigrants and so on, which I hate, because there might be some truth to that, but there will be exceptional cases. So guys, we're visiting markets, which in my opinion are the most tolerant, inclusive, and let's say, those are the places that bring Chile the closest to Latin America, and it has to do with Chile's reputation on being the cold brother of the continent, the most European one, the most developed, the wealthiest. But in the very heart of it, I think every person in Latin America is pretty much the same. The differences are more superficial than interior. So by visiting the markets, we're going to start these very nice places on which there is a lot of different communities living, and most importantly, guys, I would say those are the richest places when it comes to culture and the human factor. Is there any questions so far? All right. So guys, the group is not huge, but we're gonna get some attention. All right. So reminders of safety. Let's keep us together, and maybe it would be wise not to display the phone. So
I'll take my chances. I'll keep it like this. Don't worry.
Yeah. So keep it close to you.
Yeah. Don't worry.
And if something is strange, I mean, do you live in Medellin? Do you know what the thrill is?
I know. Don't worry.
If you have this feeling of something, just keep it next to you and we'll be fine.
No problem. Thanks.
Any question, guys? Very good. Vamos. It's a place that stands for markets, very good produce, very good markets, and some of the nicest people in town. This is the transition to the best, biggest, and most chaotic market in town. We haven't gotten there, but this is a very good starting point to understand what the markets are about. This place is called Tirso de Molina. On the first floor, we're gonna find charcuterie, cheese, fruits, vegetables, fruit, good prices, nice people. But if there was a single reason why you should visit this market later, is to have lunch in the restaurants on the second floor. There is gonna be food from Colombia, Venezuela, Peru. There is also a Thai restaurant on the second floor. This is not very touristy. If you saw more travelers, it will be most likely people that took a tour with us. And prices here are gonna be between 4 and maybe 8,000 pesos, like between 5 up to 10 American dollars. Servings are very generous and the food is very tasty. First floor, lots of produce, very good prices, but not as good as the next market. Let's say you live into a very wealthy district in Santiago and you want to impress your friends by saying you did your shopping in La Vega. You come here, but this is not really La Vega. This is very easy to navigate. It's actually not as crowded. So it's like there, but it's not the real thing. So what's the history behind this market? There has been a market here for over 60 years. However, the former structure was devastated by 2000 surplus, so they had to build again. Of a forest by having shades which imitates the shape of different branches and leaves. In summer, when it gets very hot in the afternoon, the temperature here is gonna be kind of cool. And in winter, like there is a constant flow of air coming in and out. So it's actually it's all the time a really nice temperature inside the market. So we're just getting ready to go to La Vega Central. Hola, buenos días. That's a very common thing. People just come close, try to listen. They don't understand English, so they stay here for a couple seconds. They say hi, and then they, all right? So cute. They're gonna say, oh, we have a group of gringos. No matter if you are from Belgium, France, or the UK, or America, or United States of America, you are gringos, okay? And well, we're gonna
Is
go
that
now.
just because we speak English?
Huh?
Why are they calling you?
Gringo is someone who comes from other country and who doesn't look Latin.
Sure.
Exactly, like a foreigner, like a traveler, let's say. Foreigner doesn't say that. No matter where you're from, that's gringo.
Farang.
So now we're gonna go to La Vega Central, which is my favorite market, guys. Markets, inside the markets, it is really safe. The part that might be tricky is to go from one market to the other. So when crossing the streets, we have to be a bit more careful, all right? And any question before we go, guys? Okay, so up, Vegas Central. Nichts.
Corriente. Por eso cuando lo dijiste digo,
Not that good.
Come here, guys. Come here.
Claro, pues. Yo como huevona voy y me tengo apurada, esperándole como enamorada y nunca la llego.
Sí.
He didn't get away with anything, I think they so like
con los lápices de colores a mí.
Hay café, mira, 2 por 5, 2 por 5.
¿Pero qué? ¿El Diego no lo robó el DNI? ¿Cómo está? ¿Está bien? Cuídese.
algunos lugares, no, en algunos sí.
Lo preco pepino, cebollín, ciulé, zapallo, albahaca, ajo. Me matando el pepino.
Alright guys, I'm gonna go personal and I'm gonna tell you about my childhood. My grandmother was from Chile and between
Hola, ¿cómo estás? My friend, my friend. Hermanito. Venezuela. Venezuela.
I'm gonna be at the end of the story. Okay? Let's go to it.
Banana.
Emma.
Emma. Le pegué. Hola señora, ¿cómo estás? Una empanada mechada con queso. Sí, gracias.
¿Nada queso?
Sí. Sí, gracias, amor.
¿Para llevar?
Está bueno.
Hola, Mari, cobra ahí.
Sí, gracias, amor.
Ok, ya. Déjame pegar.
Muchas gracias, mi vida.
Tu orden, caballero.
Gracias. Chicharrones, patacones.
Then you season it with salt, lime, pepper, whatever you want. A more complicated, not complicated, a more, let's say, a longer version of it requires frying it. And because it has a very strong umami taste, it actually tastes like bacon after frying. So it's really nice to have something different and 100% vegan. Below it, you're gonna see some potatoes that are very, very long and thin. Those are potatoes that come from the south of Chile, from an island by the name of Chiloé. You go to a fancy restaurant and they charge you ridiculous prices for a meal because they have purple potatoes. That's the reason why. All right? They do not have any different taste. It's just like they are very beautiful. Another thing we have a lot of in summer is cantaloupes and watermelons. They're beautiful, but we only have them like between January and February. And most of the produce you are gonna see in this market is grown local. Exceptions are very few, and they include mangoes, passion fruits, bananas, and pineapples. They will be brought from either Ecuador or Brazil. All right. So agriculture industry is very strong. It's a very good one in Chile. However, guys, I cannot help criticize a little bit of what's been happening in the last years. Avocados. Chileans eat lots of avocados. And avocados are grown in a region not very far from Santiago in the north. In this region, they imported a different variety which is mainly grown in Central America. This variety requires lots of water. And unfortunately, these people have become very greedy. So they have dried out bodies of water around the area, creating a devastation over there, but also making a lot of profits without respecting the communities and the natural resources in there. I am not against profits. I love when I make very high chips, but I think we should be aware of the impact of our activities. And agriculture has not been properly regulated. So that's why. And another criticism I'm gonna go for is that of the salmon industry. Salmon has become a huge industry, especially in the south of Chile. So it's been formed. And these salmon farms have not been very environmental friendly. They have created a lot of pollution, and once in a while these cages break, releasing thousands of salmon in areas where there is not that fish naturally. So the impact has been huge. All right? So we are living in a country where agriculture is very strong, where we get beautiful fruits and vegetables, but there is some people that haven't behaved the best when it comes to respecting nature and communities around.